Hello, my name is Mike Ash. I'm the co-founder and Chief Medical Strategy and Education Officer for an AI startup called FunctionalMind. And it's my pleasure today to talk about our journey transforming functional medicine with AI, enhancing and improving accuracy, the various challenges that we've overcome and are still dealing with, and some of the future directions in which we're going to be moving. So, good morning. Afternoon or evening, everyone. It's, of course, a great pleasure to be here with such a diverse audience of clinicians and technologists to discuss the evolving landscape of healthcare, one that inevitably is moving beyond traditional symptom management to a more proactive root cause approach to disease, and of course is now starting to embrace the role of AI. Functional, integrative, longevity, and lifestyle medicine are starting to embrace this shift in large part because of their intent of focusing on personalized, patient-centered care. These disciplines actually blend medical science with holistic, nutritional, and health extension-based interventions, not simply to optimize health, but also reverse and prevent chronic illness and intentionally extend health span. I think what's particularly exciting for all of us and is highly relevant to both clinicians and those working in AI and technology is that practitioners in these fields are often early adopters of innovation. They've learned to rely on cutting-edge research, new biomarkers, and precision diagnostics to guide patient care. And this data-driven approach makes them, of course, prime candidates for AI-driven support, where they can leverage technology to enhance their clinical decision-making, streamline workflows, improve research activity, and provide more proactive and individualized healthcare solutions. And on that basis, I want to just ask the question to everybody, what does it really mean to be healthy? Is it just the absence of disease, or is there something more to it? Over decades of working with thousands of patients and educating healthcare professionals worldwide, I've seen that when people think about their health, they focus more on how well they can function physically, mentally, and emotionally, rather than just being disease-free. And this is the foundation of the areas of medicine we are focused on, understanding what's limiting a person's ability to function at their very best. To truly reduce the burden of chronic disease, I believe we need to shift our priority from simply diagnosing illness to assessing and optimizing function. And this is where personalized lifestyle medicine comes in. By looking at individuals' unique genetics, their environment, their diet, stress factors, and of course, using cutting-edge science and technology, we can create targeted health plans that don't just treat symptoms, but restore and enhance overall function. My own background, I have over 12 years of answering clinical questions with references for clinicians seeking solutions to the problems that they face every day. Over 25 years of teaching nutritional and functional and integrated medicine and lifestyle, and also co-founding the first lifestyle medicine training institute for the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK, I see these 5 principal problems. 1, my colleagues suffer from information overload. 2, they never have enough time to really engage because of all the work they have to do. They're getting more and more complex care cases to deal with. To date, there was no specialized AI until we appeared for this particular area of care. And it's, as such, it's a bit of an undeserved niche in medicine. Looking internally, the development team looked at 4 principal areas because we recognized that there was a definite need in which I believe AI could fill, but we also had to qualify the factors that were going to determine our partner selection to support our AI databases and end user engagement. I think this slide really sort of captures the areas that we spent time on before we began building a process of decision support. And the first was we decided we needed to be very realistic about our limitations. And we determined that we'd opt for a custom-built AI tool to ensure full control and data privacy. We also spent a lot of time defining core use causes and cases to make sure that we picked a partner with a large language model to meet these needs. Our goals included having very specific medical requirements, natural language programming, and evidence-based responses. Naturally, we talked a great deal about this project. We engaged colleagues, people that are experienced in this area, because we wanted to understand what they would look for, and trust and expertise came on top of that list. Clinicians need to be able to understand the reasoning behind a decision support. It's not good enough just to be given a set of answers. They need to be able to pick them apart and make sure they're not going to create a problem. And then finally, we realize that actually very few people really know how to use AI. This audience may be unusual. You're probably highly experienced. But in medicine, most clinicians and healthcare practitioners have a very modest and often no experience about how to effectively use AI. And that means that we also have to develop a training program, which is ongoing, to make sure they get the very best out of it. So this is our visual representation of our simplified ecosystem. Given the broad phenotypic variation on both a personal and population level, it's necessary that we have to have a combination of both well-informed baseline intervention care, which can be relied on through clinical algorithms, and a high level of personalization to make sure that patients become party to the overall program of improvement. So in this field, clinicians, when they meet a patient, already have a number of guidelines available to them, different support processes, they understand nutrition, they got some background in supplements, and they have an experience in medicines. But once they start to engage in the conversation, we recognize that there's a great deal of value where we could combine multiple sources around a particular individual requirements to facilitate accurate clinical decision support, appropriate lifestyle advice. We wanted to understand the reasoning, the rationale for these recommendations, because patients are far more engaged when they're party to that process. And ultimately, we want to be able to produce a care plan or a protocol for that individual. We've subsequently included the use of agentic components to provide additional skills and advice. Most patients that are seen fall into two categories. The first is that they have a highly complex, very physician-oriented need of care before a plan can be presented to them. And there are those that have lower levels of complexity. They still need some physician oversight, but ultimately the treatment decision will be guided by colleagues or perhaps different clinicians involved in that person's care. The primary clinician is always going to be looking through supervision to move the highly complex patient towards low levels of complexity in order that that individual can share in the responsibility of recovering their health. Now, those decisions really fall into two primary categories. The translation of multiple sources of input from clinical notes, research, and evolving treatment or care plans means that the clinician has to find a personalized strategy that the individual patient can agree to under extreme time pressure. And we know already this creates decision paralysis. They're often oversupplied with information and new knowledge because clinicians are entering this space for the first time at a rate higher than ever before. It often means they come with an enormous amount of skill sets around their existing knowledge. They've often invested a great deal of time and money in learning new knowledge. And then when they're faced with the clinical translation of both sets into a very tight time frame to meet the needs of an individual person, they can become consumed with uncertainty, and it creates an additional level of time, often more time spent outside the consultation than inside the consultation, to come up with a satisfactory plan. You might imagine there are many clinical challenges in managing the most common presentation in the clinic, and even more so in the field of care that we're discussing. But every medic, every healthcare professional these days are faced with the same problems. And any key challenge in conventional medicine with these type of conditions is that it's constructed with a reliance on rigid specialisms. Now, whilst our process is extremely effective for acute care, it really struggles with chronic complex conditions that span multiple systems. For example, a patient with metabolic issues, neurological symptoms, and gut dysfunction may actually end up seeing multiple specialists, yet no one is connecting the dots. And this is where the super generalists, the colleagues of mine that operate in this field, are essential. Clinicians who bridge disciplines and who recognize how systems ultimately interact. Functional and integrated medicine takes this approach, understanding, for example, that hormones affect cognition, gut health influences immunity, and inflammation can drive disease. We don't need to replace specialists, but we do need to try and break down silos. And by integrating insights across disciplines, we can move beyond symptom management and treat patients as whole individuals, addressing the root causes of their disease or their dysfunction. Now, in this screenshot of an intake chart developed by the Institute of Functional Medicine, the process of integration of lifestyle, genetics, and other factors are presented in a flat, one-dimensional structure, which creates numerous 360-degree interpretation challenges. Albeit it's just one part of the process, it's time-consuming, but nevertheless, as these two example research papers demonstrate, it does actually work. But I believe AI will improve delivery at scale, and it needs to, as the burden of chronic illness in the US involves some 60% of the population, and in almost every country, the healthcare systems are faced with similar demographics. So now you understand some of our requirements. Our solution needs led us to meet with John Snow Labs. We felt that they could leverage the advanced capabilities of their LLMs and got involved with their data scientists. We understood that they could provide clinicians with tools that could help us to manage large, diverse data sets and specialist data sets. And we could then offer accurate and actionable insights tailored to functional and integrative medicine. But as I already identified with you, working with professionals, there's an absolute need to offer an equivalently professional aligned AI. HIPAA, GDPR, and global regulatory compliance is essential when operating in this field. We also wanted to be sure that we could update the references that make up the rationale and the transparency of the decision-making daily. We wanted to be sure that we could ingest very highly specialized data into our system and that the system could appropriately extract the information from that data to qualify a very specialist output for an individual. We wanted to make sure we had a cooperative product and data management team, and ultimately all of us needed the ability to be able to pivot and meet changing clinical and of course AI needs and capacity. As such, we created our new vessel, the pioneering AI for functional medicine that we call FunctionalMind. Now, FunctionalMind is, like many chatbots, relatively simple in principle, but it sits on top of a very sophisticated set of data analysis, agentic tools, and specialized needs for this particular category of medicine. In these two use cases, I'm just going to show you a comparison between FunctionalMind and ChatGPT, and also how we've streamlined decision-making, how we've been able to improve factuality in complex scenarios, and enhance clinicians' ability to manage multifaceted conditions. The first one, which we're looking at, is really explains why functional, integrative, and longevity medicine focuses on mechanisms, not just on diagnosis. You see, in conventional medicine, diagnosis is often the endpoint. And once a condition is identified, the focus then shifts to managing the symptoms. But in functional, integrative, and longevity medicine, a diagnosis is really just a starting point. The real question to us isn't just what disease does this person have, but why did it develop in the first place? And that's why practitioners in this space are so deeply invested in understanding mechanisms, the underlying biological processes that drive health and disease. Rather than treating just isolating symptoms, we look at how systems interact, identifying dysfunctions in metabolism, inflammation, gut health, immune regulation, mitochondrial function, etc. AI support needs to be able to match their needs with verifiable and transparent mechanism. And in this example, for example, ChatGPT 4.0 does its very best to cover some mechanisms, but it provides us with no explanatory references. When the same question is run through FunctionalMind, FunctionalMind produces reference links and further detailed analysis to ensure comfort in the rationale is generated for the clinician. This backed up mechanistic approach is especially critical in chronic and complex conditions, where multiple factors, including genetics, lifestyle, environment, and diet, as you've already learned, converge to create dysfunction. It's also at the heart of longevity medicine, which isn't just about extending lifespan, but it's actually optimizing health span by targeting the root causes of aging at a cellular level. By understanding mechanisms, we move beyond a band-aid solution and towards personalized interventions that restore function and prevent disease before it manifests. This, I believe, is the future of medicine, where deep scientific insights translate into truly transformative care. In this example, I want to show you how AI in healthcare should do more than just analyze data. It should enhance the clinician's ability to provide truly personalized care. By blending advanced analytics with human experience, AI enables practitioners to make informed, data-driven decisions whilst honoring the individuality of this patient. This synergy ensures that modern healthcare can remain scientifically precise and yet deeply patient-centered. In this example, when working with a construction worker, his health needs require a realistic and practical nutrition plan to fit his physically demanding job, his daily routine and lifestyle. Traditionally, creating such a plan would take hours of specialist input, manually adjusting for energy demands, meal timings, accessibility, and compliance, often as unpaid work for the clinician. With FunctionalMind, this process is transformed in just a few minutes. The AI customizes the nutritional strategy in real time, tailoring macronutrients, micronutrients, and meal suggestions to his specific needs and preferences. And most importantly, it actively involved the patient, ensuring that he understood, agreed with, and then can stick to that plan. It's not just about efficiency, it's about engagement. When patients are part of the decision-making process, they're far more likely to follow through the recommendations. That saves clinicians time and improves patient adherence, meaning that FunctionalMind is making personalized medicine truly practical. Naturally, there are ongoing challenges in the utility of AI in clinical care. And these are factors that we try to take into account and are under ongoing constant data science and clinical review. But what is very clear is that the gap in application that I identified earlier, which operates as a barrier to scale delivery, is rapidly being eroded by the appropriate inclusion of AI in clinical management. AI in healthcare should do more, of course, than just analyze data. It should enhance our ability to provide truly personalized care by blending advanced analytics with our human expertise. AI, delivered appropriately, enables practitioners to make informed, data-driven decisions whilst honoring the individuality of each patient. I think the synergy ensures that modern healthcare will remain scientifically precise and deeply patient-centered. In fact, let's look back at a 2019 AAMC public opinion research, where the top characteristics that the public values in a physician are holistic care, treating the whole person, not just a specific medical condition, that they have effective communication, they listen and take time to answer questions, and they can do that with AI because they can do it within real time. They got up-to-date medical knowledge, a constant struggle in medicine at the rate at which papers are published daily. FunctionalMind gives you access right up to date with research, and ultimately being able to convert what are often quite complex medical problems into simple terminology so that the patient or client can leave and go home and explain to their family what it is they're doing and why. I think these findings really highlight the importance of a patient-centered approach where medical expertise is complemented by strong interpersonal skills. Looking ahead, where are we going now? Well, ultimately, we're looking to obviously increase the amount of data that we make available to our model, and recognizing that healthcare professionals, unlike yourselves, most of whom are AI specialists, they've had actually very little time to really understand how to make the best use of AI and ultimately how to apply it for best clinical outcomes. And that means whilst adding more of the exciting features, such as multimodal patient journeys, enhanced agentic management are very exciting, and is the driver that us as developers, we're also deeply focused on clinical accuracy, reliability, and ultimately training our clinicians to make them as effective and well enhanced as the tools that they're using. So to finish off, my view is that AI should be an empowering process, not a replacing process for clinicians. And whilst AI won't typically replace doctors, I think it's pretty clear that doctors who use AI will replace those who don't. But we must never lose sight of the fact that AI should also be humanizing. It should be there to empower the clinician to seamlessly integrate data insights with their deep understanding of individual patient needs. I think it would be a very sad day if the process began to eliminate the human interaction that takes place between a clinician, a physician, a healthcare practitioner, and the patient or client that they see. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that use case of some interest. I'll be happy to answer questions should you have any.